Breaking the courtroom was supposed to be about Jim Jones' legal mess. But baby, nobody was ready for what Camron did next. In a twist that has the entire internet clutching their pearls and refreshing their feeds, Dipset's very own pink-powered truth cannon walked in, looked around, and exposed Chrissy Lampkin like a canceled OnlyFans subscription. Oh yes, it's that messy. We're talking betrayal, secrets, shady alliances, and a scandal so deep it makes reality TV look like PBS. Ask yourself what happens when your ride or die has been riding with someone else behind the scenes. What if the person you trusted most was actually handing out the keys to your empire to folks you ain't even know? Is this a betrayal? Or a setup years in the making and the real gag? Camron didn't just drop tea, he boiled the pot, smashed the kettle, and served receipts on a courtroom platter in front of the world. Jim looked like he saw a ghost. Chrissy froze like she was caught mid-scene on Love and Hip Hop. And with the people, we're just trying to make sense of this nuclear-level drama. Grab your snacks, because this ain't just a trial. This is the collapse of a legacy. So picture this. The courtroom is packed. Reporters are elbowing each other for a better shot. And Jim Jones walks in like he's just here to clear his name. Calm, collected, and completely unaware that the biggest plot twist in Dipset history is about to slap him harder than his last record deal. And then enters Camron, not just as a witness, but as the unofficial narrator of destruction. Because when Cam speaks, he doesn't whisper. No, he detonates. And what he said next? Chilly? The walls shook. The judge blinked twice. And Chrissy Lampkin, she might have aged 5 years in 5 seconds. Camron didn't just spill tea. He opened the floodgates and dumped the whole boiling pot in front of everyone. And what poured out? It's a secret so deep, so damaging, so dripping with betrayal that even courtroom security had to do a double take. It wasn't about Jim's alleged crimes anymore. It was about what Chrissy had been doing behind his back. We're not just talking cheating rumors or petty drama. No, we're talking about a full-blown betrayal involving secret alliances, hush-hush meetings, and connections to powerful people who don't exactly do 9-to-5s. According to Cam, Chrissy had been working with individuals that Jim had no idea she was even in contact with, people from his past that were supposed to be dead and buried, figuratively speaking, of course. And the gag. She wasn't just keeping secrets, she was allegedly helping facilitate some shady dealings that could now be tied directly back to Jim. That's right, Jim may be on trial for one thing, but thanks to Chrissy's extracurriculars, his name just got dragged into an entirely new mess. Now, pause for a second and ask yourself, this was Chrissy just trying to survive in a man's world? Or was she orchestrating something way darker from behind the scenes? Because if you believe Camron, let's be honest, even when he's petty, he's rarely wrong. Then this wasn't just bad judgment. It was premeditated. And the most painful part? Jim looked blindsided. Sitting there in that courtroom, he looked like a man who just realized the enemy wasn't in the streets, was in his bed. Now, let's not forget, Chrissy has always been presented as the loyal ride or die. It's the one who held it down when the label turned their backs, when the show stopped calling, and when the streets got too hot. But Cam painted a different picture. A picture of a woman who smiled on camera while slipping into backroom deals off it. He claimed she'd been associating with financial handlers who had ties to certain unmentionable circles. Not fans, not family, not even enemies knew about these connections. And it wasn't just casual. Cam alleged that Chrissy was funneling information, making introductions, and possibly setting the stage for Jim's current downfall long before he even smelled smoke. Suddenly, the trial wasn't about guilt or innocence. It became a story about betrayal and blind trust. It's like watching a Lifetime movie, but instead of a jealous ex, we've got a queen pin in heels. And instead of crying in the rain, Jim is sitting in court wondering if his empire was built on a foundation of lies. And the reactions? Instant chaos. The courtroom buzzed. Journalists scrambled to file updated drafts. Social media went into cardiac arrest. Fans started dragging up old interviews, old tweets, old episodes of Love and Hip Hop, trying to piece together signs they missed. And when people saw how comfortable Chrissy had always been calling the shots, they started asking real questions. Was this just the tip of the iceberg? Was she ever really loyal, or was she playing chess while Jim was too busy counting street cred? And just when you think the situation couldn't get any more twisted, insiders started leaking their own versions of events, according to one anonymous source who claimed to be a former associate of Jim's inner circle. Chrissy had once been warned to cut ties with a known financial fixer, someone already being watched by federal investigators. Did she listen? Apparently not. That same source said Chrissy always thought she could outsmart everyone. But she forgot the streets talk hand. Sometimes they talk straight to the feds. Now you tell me what kind of woman dances with danger when her man's already under a microscope. This ain't just messy. This is surgical sabotage, and poor Jim. Word is he was already on edge about his legal situation, but hearing all this in open court, that man's face went pale, like the drip drained from his soul. And Camron, he just leaned back, arms folded, like he'd been waiting years to drop this bomb. Whether it was revenge, remorse, or righteous fury, we may never know. But one thing's for sure, he didn't just crack the case. He cracked open a whole new one. And while everyone in that courtroom was trying to wrap their heads around what just happened, Chrissy stayed silent. No tears, no outrage. Just stone cold composure. Like she already knew this day might come. Please. And that silence, it screamed louder than any outburst ever could. Because when someone doesn't even flinch after their entire playbook gets read aloud in public, you have to wonder how many more secrets are they still holding? And more importantly, how far does this scandal really go? Because if Cam's telling the truth, then this isn't just about a woman going rogue. This is about an empire built on deception, the betrayal of loyalty, the exposure of hidden alliances, and a man who may have just realized that his downfall wasn't written in a courtroom, was written at home. And right when it felt like things couldn't possibly spiral any further, the judge called for a recess, the lawyers huddled, and Jim just sat there, stunned, frozen in disbelief. And the rest of us were only watching the first domino fall. Because this scandal isn't over, not even close. When the court reconvened after that chaotic recess, the energy in the room had completely changed. No one was looking at Jim anymore, like he was the sole focus of this trial. Now every eye was fixed on Chrissy. She wasn't just sitting in a courtroom anymore. She was sitting on a ticking time bomb, and the entire world was waiting for the next explosion. Reporters outside were already spinning narratives faster than a DJ in Harlem. The Queen of Dipset betrayed the King. Love and Hip Hop star secretly behind Jim's fall. Every news outlet wanted the inside scoop. And social media, a digital battlefield. Fans were split right down the middle, some defending Chrissy like she was a misunderstood strategist caught in the wrong game. Others dragging her like she sold Jim out for a free Birkin and a business meeting with the enemy. Then came the leaks, because of course there were leaks. First, a voice recording surfaced of a woman who sounded an awful lot like Chrissy having a cryptic conversation with someone about moving money quietly and keeping Jim out of the loop. The internet pounced on it like sharks in bloody water. Was it real? Was it edited? Didn't matter. The damage was already done. People were already convinced Chrissy was the puppet master behind the curtain, smiling for the cameras while setting the stage for Jim's downfall. And that was just the beginning, because the leaks kept coming. A document appeared online that allegedly showed a real estate transaction made under a dummy LLC, with connections to both Chrissy's stylist and a shadowy investment group flagged by investigators years ago for money laundering ties. You kidding me? Can't make this stuff up? But here's where it really gets twisted. Sources close to the situation claimed that Jim had confronted Chrissy privately months before the trial about some financial irregularities. Allegedly, she brushed him off, told him not to worry, and insisted everything was handled. Classic gaslight. Now, those same sources are saying Jim's starting to believe this whole situation was a setup from the beginning. That while he was out grinding building the Dipset brand, Chrissy was allegedly laying the groundwork for an entirely separate operation. One that didn't include him at the top of the pyramid, and Camron. Oh, he was just getting warmed up back in court. Cam continued unraveling the thread, now dropping names. People from the crew's past. Associates from the early Dipset days who mysteriously disappeared or suddenly stopped being invited to the cookouts. Cam implied that Chrissy had been keeping tabs on more than just Jim. She had her eye on the whole structure. He even hinted that certain business deals Dipset made years ago might have gone sour because someone close was feeding information to outsiders. The courtroom, at that point, wasn't even functioning like a legal space. It was a stage for a full-blown reality show meltdown with real-world consequences. The judge looked like he wanted to melt into the bench. Jim looked like a man trying to solve a puzzle with half the pieces missing. And Chrissy, still composed, almost too composed. That's when the speculation went nuclear. People started floating theories that Chrissy might have cut a deal, that she saw the writing on the wall and decided to protect herself first. Some said she might be working with investigators. Others claimed she was the one who leaked documents to get ahead of the scandal. The conspiracy theories were endless, but each one added fuel to the fire. Meanwhile, Dipset fans were watching their entire legacy unravel like a cheap lace front. This wasn't just about a rapper on trial anymore. It was about loyalty, legacy, betrayal, and the question nobody wanted to ask: how much of what we thought was real was actually just an illusion. What if Chrissy had been playing the long game all along? What if Cam had kept quiet for years, watching it unfold, waiting for the right moment to drop the mic and walk off like a Harlem Shakespearean villain? And speaking of Cam, let's not act like he's doing this out of the goodness of his heart. This man has had issues with Jim for years. Everyone knows about the Dipset breakup drama, the beefs, the silent tension. So when he finally spoke out, it wasn't out of loyalty, which is surgical strike. And boy, was it effective. But here's the thing: Cam didn't just expose Chrissy's secret dealings. He also started hinting that Jim wasn't completely innocent either. That while Chrissy might have been pulling strings, Jim had been willfully ignoring all the red flags waving around him like parade banners. According to Cam, there were signs for years: questionable financial reports, strange business partners, and projects disappearing without a trace. If Jim wasn't complicit, then he was clearly asleep at the wheel. And that's when it hit people the possibility that this wasn't just Chrissy's betrayal. It was the collapse of a power couple who had been living in denial. A hip-hop dynasty built on trust that never truly existed. The court transcripts started reading like a thriller novel. Deals gone wrong, hidden bank accounts, alleged payoffs. It's what's giving Scarface meets Bravo. Even people who didn't care about Dipset were now invested. This was bigger than hip-hop. It was now a full-scale scandal with legal, financial, and emotional stakes higher than ever. And as if the chaos wasn't enough, one more bombshell dropped that made everyone pause. The mention of a possible federal probe. That's right. Word spread that certain investigators had been following a money trail for over a year, and that Cam's testimony had just fast-forwarded their timeline. Now there was talk of subpoenas, wiretaps, and sealed indictments possibly tied to some of the names Cam dropped. The crowd outside the courthouse doubled overnight. Reporters, fans, conspiracy theorists. Everyone wanted to know what was coming next. Would Jim take the fall for Chrissy's alleged actions? Would Chrissy finally break her silence? Or would more secrets leak before they had a chance to clean this mess up? What made it worse? The silence from Chrissy's camp. No statement, no denial, nothing. And that silence, it was deafening. The internet took it as guilt. The blogs took it as confirmation. And Jim, Word is, he stopped speaking to her entirely after the second day of the trial. Some insiders say he packed a bag and left their shared home. Others say he's been in legal meetings nonstop trying to figure out what happens if her name ends up in a federal document. Either way, the trust is gone. The damage is done. And Dipset fans, they're just sitting in disbelief watching their heroes fall like dominoes. But just when it looked like the smoke was starting to clear, a final twist sent the courtroom back into frenzy. Because just when you thought the courtroom had peaked in drama, it happened. The prosecution stood up, shuffled a thick stack of documents, and asked to enter new evidence into the record. Cue the gasps, cue the camera flashes, cue Chrissy finally shifting in her seat for the first time in hours. The tension unbearable. This wasn't just some casual update or dusty paperwork. This was something new, something explosive. Inside that stack, allegedly a financial ledger connected to a luxury consulting business that had Chrissy listed as a silent partner. Sounds harmless, right? Until you realize that same business had previously been flagged in a racketeering case 2 states away. Now the room went silent, like dead silent. Even the court stenographer stopped typing for a second. That's when the whispers started. People saying, is Chrissy about to get indicted too? And did she really think she could hide this? And Jim, his face looked like he'd seen a ghost. Maybe because for the first time the dots were connecting publicly. And suddenly, this wasn't about Cameron trying to settle a score. This was bigger. This was criminal. Allegedly, the term being tossed around now wasn't just betrayal, it was conspiracy. And the prosecution hinted that they were only scratching the surface. There was more, much more. Unconfirmed sources claimed that federal investigators had been watching for over a year, but were waiting on one trigger. The moment when Chrissy's name officially crossed the line from involved to implicated, and Cam just lit the match. Now, lawyers were panicking, phones were blowing up, and the streets. Baby, the streets were on fire. Even rappers who hadn't been relevant in 5 years were tweeting about it. Podcasts were already recording emergency episodes. And back in the courtroom, Jim looked like he'd finally realized what everybody else had started to suspect: this wasn't just Chrissy's mess. It was his, too. Whether he was complicit, clueless, or just too in love to see the truth, he was now tangled in something that could ruin everything. We're talking career, money, public image, freedom gone. And what made it worse? The timing. Because just weeks before this trial started, Jim had been teasing a new album, talking about legacy, reinvention, growth. And now, all anyone could talk about was whether he'd be finishing that project behind bars. The fall from grace was brutal. Brand deals paused, TV appearances pulled, industry contacts ghosted. Even some longtime collaborators started putting distance between themselves and the Dipset name. One producer allegedly told a blog, "You've got to know when to walk away. This isn't just music drama anymore. This is federal-level hot water." And Chrissy? Oh, now she wanted to talk, after days of silence and stone-cold stares. Her PR team issued a statement so generic it might as well have been written by a chatbot. It didn't deny anything. It didn't confirm anything. It just said, Chrissy is focused on her well-being and asks for privacy during this time. Translation: she's lawyering up and hoping the walls don't close in before she can cut a deal. But public opinion already flipped. Fans who once cheered for her as the real one were now dragging her harder than any ex-Love and hip-hop castmate ever could. Accusations flew that she used Jim for clout, for access, for money. That while Jim was out here trying to rebuild a legacy, Chrissy was allegedly carving out her own behind his back. And the cruel irony: the empire they built together, the brand, the love story, the image was now being used as evidence of how deep the deception ran. People weren't asking if they'd recover. They were asking if this was ever real to begin with. And Cameron, he wasn't done. Just days after testifying, he dropped a cryptic freestyle online where he didn't name names, but the bars were clear. He said something about never trusting a queen with a snake tongue and watching castles fall from inside the gates. Fans ate it up and blogs exploded. Was it petty? Absolutely. Was it iconic? Without question. And with each passing day, more chaos unfolded. A second witness came forward, claiming they had seen Chrissy in private meetings with a known financial fixer, someone who'd previously been caught in a wire fraud scandal. Another leak alleged that money from Jim's merchandise line had been diverted into an offshore account under an alias only Chrissy used. Whether any of it holds up in court doesn't even matter now. The damage is done. Jim Jones is no longer just the guy with the Dipset legacy. He's the face of one of the biggest betrayals in hip-hop history. Chrissy's not just a reality star. She's now the alleged mastermind behind a quiet takedown. And Camron, he went from rap legend to the people's prosecutor in under an hour. The trial's not even over. But the verdict is clear in the court of public opinion. Trust is broken. Legacies are cracked. And nobody's walking away clean. Not Jim, not Chrissy, not even the fans. 'Cause everyone bought into the fairy tale. And now we're watching it burn in real time. So what happens next? Will there be charges against Chrissy? Will Jim cut a deal and turn on her? Will Dipset ever recover from this nuclear fallout? And more importantly, what else hasn't been exposed yet? Because if Camron had this kind of dirt saved up, you have to wonder what else is he holding? What other skeletons are still locked away in the Dipset closet, just waiting to be dragged out? As investigators keep digging, as media keeps spinning, and as fans keep watching, one thing is certain: this scandal isn't just breaking news. It's breaking history. And from the way things are unraveling, we might be witnessing the end of an era, not just for Jim Jones and Chrissy, but for everything Dipset once stood for. And there you have it. The Dipset dynasty isn't just cracking, it's collapsing right in front of us. Jim Jones, once the street-smart king of Harlem hustle, now standing in court, blindsided and betrayed. Chrissy, the woman we all thought was ride or die. ALLEGEDLY, running covert operations like she's auditioning for power. Real life edition. And Camron, who he didn't just stir the pot. He flipped the whole damn kitchen. But this isn't just about hip-hop beef or courtroom drama. This is about secrets, power, loyalty, and a scandal so wild it makes reality TV look like preschool nap time. The question is, what's next? Is Jim going to finally speak out and spill his side of the story? Is Chrissy going to play victim, mastermind, or both? Or is there another twist still waiting to hit the headlines that'll change everything again? We want to know what you think. Did Cam save Jim by telling the truth? Or did he just destroy what was left of Dipset to settle an old score? Was Chrissy always in it for herself? Or is this all just one big misunderstanding that got dragged into the spotlight? Drop your theories in the comments. No filter. And if you're as shocked, gagged, and scandalized as we are, make sure to smash that like button so this story keeps spreading. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications because this saga, it's far from over. We've got more receipts, more drama, and more secrets to expose. And trust us, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Stay tuned, because in this twisted celebrity circus, the truth is always messier than the lies. See you in the next Expose.